So now let's get started building our actual texture sheet. We're going to be using bits and pieces that we find on textures.com to do the texturing in this case. This is a really good example of the kind of project you find yourself in often, where you might have just some sort of loose source material you found on the internet. You might find some, like we did here, images on Google Earth, or some Street View images or whatever, but they're not good enough where you can actually take the images and use them as textures. So you're going to recreate the look of the building using a more generic texture set. So let's get into it. Let's see how it goes here. One of my guiding rules when I'm making a texture that kind of helps speed things along is to work big to small, to work with the overall textures and then work my way down into details. So for this building, let me go back and see if I can call up the, here we go. This is our Google Earth view of the building, and you can see from here that it's primarily sort of a rough stucco texture. You can see it in the side here, this dark red side, pretty well. You can't see much other than that because the image quality in general for these 3D maps or these 3D buildings in Google Earth is pretty rough, but you certainly can get the idea of how it looks from looking at that. Like, it's obvious. You can see the lines. You can see this is a corrugated metal roof. You can see the stucco. You can see the doors, and you can even see enough detail on the door to see, for instance, that each of these doors has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 windows for the wide doors, and 3 windows for the narrow ones. So we can include quite a bit of detail just based on assumptions that we make from this Google image. I'm going to go over to my good old buddy textures.com here. Let's start over again and do this thing from scratch. Let's do it right. So we want to put down our stucco texture first on the walls. This texture that is going to be over the entire building except the roof, and then we'll add details to that. So let's do a search for stucco here and see what we come up with. Well, right away I see some interesting, like, that's not bad. That's a useful texture here. Let's look at the seamless preview. Oh yeah, see that tiles really well. We probably will only use the whole height of the building will probably only be 1/3 to half of this. So yeah, that could work. Let's see what else we've got. I may end up using that, but let's look down through the list here. Too much detail, too stark, too dark, too pebbly. That's not bad. Let's see what the preview looks like for that. That's not bad either. It's got a bit more detail than I want, but okay, we'll keep looking here. That also is not. Oh, look, here we go. Now that's intriguing. See, that has a small enough, a fine enough detail that it won't be obvious when it repeats. Looking at our seamless preview here. Oh yeah, that's got some really good and seamless. Yeah, I think let's go with that. So this, in this case, is Concrete Stucco 0195. And I'm going to download the medium size, the 1600 by 1600 here, and just stick that in the folder. So Boolean building, just put that in there for now. Alright, so grab our texture sheet here. We're going to copy and put it in here, put it on a layer below our AO. This is why we put the AO layer at multiply, by the way, so that it shows, it just adds the shadows on top of whatever we put beneath it. I'm going to size that down a good bit. Let's go to 100% here. I think I'm going to size it down even more than that. I just want kind of a hint of that texture in it. let's we'll just kind of copy and paste it along here. Just keep duplicating, keep pasting. Let's turn back on our UV thing lines here so we can see what we're doing. And I'm going to grab this and duplicate it up. Don't have to be real precise, don't have to be real clean about it. We're just laying down an overall stucco look for this building. Make sure I not overwrite that. So I need to grab a little and put it over here too for this edge. I'm using the Alt key, by the way, to get rid of areas of it when I select them. We could do hours and hours of videos just on how to work Photoshop, but I'm going to assume you have some knowledge of that already. And the only other area that I see that needs a bit of it are these roof edges. Roof itself obviously doesn't need me, it's not stucco. So I think we're going to do a little level adjustment on this to try to make it even a little less contrasty though. I'm going to pull up my midtones there, and just to the point, hopefully you can see this in the video, where you can still see that there's a texture there, but it's very subtle because it would be fairly subtle on the real thing. Hit OK. Alright, let's check this out. Hit save. Go back over to Blender and reload it. It's not terrible. I don't hate it. I'm not in love with it yet, but I don't hate it. Okay. By the way, the best advice I ever had, it was actually given to me in a writing class of all things, but it super applies to scenery design too, is with anything creative you're doing here, with a model that you're building, if you don't like the way it looks, it doesn't mean you're bad, it doesn't mean the model is bad, it just means it's not finished yet. So if you don't like it, it's not done. Just go with that and you will never go wrong. Alright, so I might even level that to get rid of even more of that detail. I just want a little bit of it. Yeah. So you can see, I'm going close there. It's a very subtle texture. It's not overwhelming, not in your face at all. The other thing is that this building appears to be, if I recall, a little pink with stucco on the side. You see how it seems fairly well color balanced on the ground. The concrete is tan, the asphalt is sort of a dark gray, and this building has a definite pinkish tinge to it. So I think I'm just gonna, rather than get fancy and add a paint layer and all that, I'm just going to go in here and actually color this stucco itself. We can always get rid of it if we need to later. So I'm just going to hit Control U and bring up the hue saturation. Just colorize it and then give it a slight pinkishness. And again, subtlety is key. Just going to give it a hint. I'm not going to go crazy with it. Yeah, I think that'll do for the moment. So the next thing to block in here is our roof color, I think, since we're working sort of big to small. So let's see, we got corrugated metal roof in this sort of teal color. So I think what I'll do first is just get my corrugation laid down here. I'm going to open up my texture library here. These are almost all from textures.com, and I'm going to go with this one, I think. Yeah, that's a pretty good start. Tileable piece here. We're just going to copy this, paste it into our texture document here, and kind of line it up with one side, and scale it down to where it looks about right. Scale down pretty far, I would say. Somewhere around there's probably got it. And then we'll just repeat it here. I'm going to repeat on the y-axis first. Take that, transform it, flip it vertical. I don't know why it does that sometimes. So annoying. Fine, I'll drag it up here, then flip it vertical. Just kind of trying to keep my lines of rivets here even on both sides of the roof. And then just hitting Control H to hide my selection so I can see how well things are lined up. So here, let me just grab a big chunk of it. And we'll Alt select to get rid of the sides here. Cut away the things we don't need. Not bad. And then the other section of roof that we have here is rotated 90 degrees. So I'm going to do that right quick. I'll move it so the center is centered on the roof line here. And from there, we just grab a bit of it and pull it down, cut away what we don't need again. Okay, so that's, I think I'm going to unsharp mask that too since we scaled it down so much. Give it a good 80% unsharp mask and save it. Back over here. Alright, that's not bad in terms of sizing and scaling. And then we just need to make it teal. And I think I am going to add a paint layer in this case. Add a new layer, make it our roof here a clipping mask. And we are going to, well, I've already cheated here a little bit and got a teal dialed in, but choose color about like that. We're going to fill this layer. And then we want to change the blend mode to something where we can see our texture coming through. Overlay is a bit too subtle. Hard light is a possibility. But you know, I kind of like pen light. And this is one of those things, you just have to keep kind of playing with the blend mode till you get one that works for your individual case here. But I like pen light, I think. I'm going to dial back the opacity of that paint just a hair. Make it a bit more subtle. Let's put it at about 85%. Save it. Alright. That is not bad. Let's see, we're not too far off of the real deal. Okay. So, next thing we need to do here is this end cap on the building is sort of a darker, kind of a rosy, dusty red here. So I'm going to add a paint layer for that too in Photoshop. I believe that is this top cap here. So I'm just going to select this area right here. And I'm going to put a new layer in. And let's find a nice red that'll work. Somewhat more desaturated. And fill that. Turn off my UV here. That really affects the color. Color-wise, it's not too bad. We changed the blend mode again. I think I'm going to stick with multiply in this case. And then peel back the opacity a bit. Acceptable, I think. Make sure it wraps around the edge here, so turn back on our UV, grab a strip of it, and this is the other edge of the roof here. Okay. And we need to get the back side of it as well. So come down here. I believe this bottom one is that side. I'm just gonna kind of scale the paint so that it fits, and then use the lasso tool to cut away what I don't want here. Using the Alt key in the lasso to remove what I'm selecting. Okay, turn off our UV, save that, and reload. Alright, so you see it wraps around properly here, and it's on the back side of the roof, so that's pretty good. Now the top of it is, let's see what that looks like here. Actually, the top of it is also painted that way, it looks like. So maybe we will just go ahead and put that in as well. These are the tops here, so I'll tell you what I'm going to do is go back down to my base stucco here and grab some of it. Sort of neglected to put a base texture in that area. And I think the top one here is the one we're trying to paint. Let's see how that goes. Yep, that's the one. Alright, so that basic coloring is done now. We've got the roof in, got the stucco in, we've painted our end cap. See, does the other end cap need painting? Kind of hard to say, isn't it? It looks like there's at least the top part of it maybe has that same rosy pink color. Let's see, it's just that may not be right, but it looks okay for the moment. Okay, so now that we've gotten to that point, I think the next thing I want to do, there are basically two more phases that we're going to go through. We're going to add some grunge and kind of break up and make the textures that we've already laid down look more realistic. And then we're going to add the detailing, which is the roll-up doors and the human doors and the windows and things like that to the front of the building. I think we're going to save the doors and the windows for last. I'm going to go ahead and do the overall grunge and weathering on this to kind of make it look a bit more realistic. So, going back to here. So you can see it's very uniform right now, and walls really, once they're exposed to weather and they've aged a bit, you'll almost never see a wall that is just uniformly one color or one texture without any kind of differentiating marks at all on it. So I'm going to go, what I want to make use of, I think, is go back to textures.com. And I want to think about something that I can overlay on top of my pink stucco that would break it up and give it a more interesting look. And I think there are two ways to go about it. You can do some sort of generic grunge texture that'll just sort of replicate staining and that sort of thing, and weathering. Or we can go for something that's going to be a little more indicative of the underlying masonry, the underlying, probably like a cinder block or concrete block, which is what this building is made of. I think I'm going to go to concrete textures. These could be really handy for all sorts of things. Choose the bare concrete category. And I'm looking for something that I can lay over my stucco to give it some detail. Obviously, like, something like this was much too stained and kind of radically filthy almost. It's a bit much. Nothing with grooves, nothing that has just a regular repeating pattern. I really don't think we're even looking for a tileable image at this point. Now this is a possibility. Check this one out. This one has a grid pattern that sort of gives away the fact that there are concrete blocks below the surface, but has a sort of an overlying sealer coat of something sort of like stucco on it. I think that could work pretty well. But I'm not going to go for the tileable one in this case. I'm going to pick, I think, this one down here. It's horizontal, it's wide. We could probably use a big section of it and just repeat it a couple times on our model. So I think I'm just going to grab the 1024 version. Actually, I've already gotten it here. I'm going to grab that, and then we're going to open it in, let's see, let me find, where's the image that we just grabbed? This is it. So let me grab a section of it here, and we'll go back down to our base stucco. Paste it on top of that. Turn on UV so I can see what I'm doing here. Not bad. And then I'm gonna move down to the bottom of it and grab a different section of it here just to keep things random. Paste it in next to it. Merge that down so we have one layer. Alright, let me turn off my UV. Now, of course, we don't want it to obliterate our stucco. I'm going to change it to multiply so that it still shows the pink through. And then, gosh, we need to pull back, way back on the opacity. We want a subtle look. We don't want something that's going to make our building look like it's 1,000 years old. I'll pull that back to about a 40% opacity and see what that looks like. That's not bad. Not bad. I think I can live with that. And as I said before, because we're not going to see both sides of the building at once, we can repeat the same image a couple times. And I'm going to grab it and I'll bring it down here as well. Trim it up. I'm going to make sure that all of our walls have some sort of differentiated grunge on them. Not horrible, not horrible at all. I think we'll make the stucco a clipping layer here. So Our grunge is only where our stucco is. Now that I can live with. That's not bad. That's actually kind of interesting. And you can see even here on our big section of painted stucco that you've got a lot of sort of breaks it up. You get a lot of interest. You get a lot of things suggesting masonry on there. Not bad. And we need something for the roof, the same kind of thing for the roof. Actually, we need a couple of things for the roof here. We need a roof crest. There's always a piece of metal that runs across the top of a roof that sort of keeps the water from getting in where the seam happens here. So we'll need to put that on right quick, and then we'll add some grunge to it. So let's get that roof crest in right quick. I'm going to go down to our roof texture here. So below the paint layer on the actual roof texture, I'm just going to kind of grab a little bit of the corrugated metal here, including a little bit of the dark channel to either side of it, and just copy and paste it and make it run like that. Actually, I'm not sure that I think I'll use a blend mode, or use a drop shadow for that instead of adding it in from the image. It'll make it a little easier to control. Alright, widen it up a little bit. Turn on our UV so we see where it gets placed. Yeah, that looks about right. Oops. Just trying to scale it over so that it covers the entire roof line here. I'm going to grab it. Okay. And then I think I'll right click and choose blending options and put a drop shadow on it. Distance of 0 and a size of maybe 1 or 2. 2's good. Yeah, maybe even 3. Dial back the opacity on it. We just want to give kind of a hint of a shadow under the edges of it. Try this and see what it looks like. Yeah, it's not bad. Subtle but effective. And then let's do some weathering on that roof as well. And that will actually go above the paint layer. So for this I am going to use a grunge map, although let me go to my texture library to grunge. A lot of the maps that I call grunge maps are actually concrete. They just tend to work pretty well for this sort of thing. Let's see, I'm going to go with... Yeah, what the heck, I'm going to try this. Now I'm not going to use all of it. I'm going to use the top part of it here. I don't need all the moss and the real dark stuff. Just copy that, paste it on top of my roof. Give it a... Let's go with good old multiply for the blend mode. Kind of scale it out so that it fits our roof better. And then I'm going to copy it and rotate it 180. Do the same thing down here. I'm leaving the roof line untouched, the roof ridge. See if we can make something that works out of that. And then we pull the opacity way back on it, to where it's just barely visible. Let's try it at about 20% and see what that looks like. So this is without the grunge, and then we reload it with. That's not bad. And the difference is very subtle. But it just sort of gives an indication of the kind of moss and dirt and streaking you get from the rain and things that happen on this roof. I think maybe, I wonder if I want my roof ridge to be that clean though. I think I will actually. I think I will include the roof ridge. I'll go ahead and make my grunge cover that as well. Yeah, I like that better. Not quite so stark that way. Alright. And we got to do the same thing over here. I'm just going to use Alt and, Alt and Shift to bring it out equally on both sides. Alright. Dirtied it up just a hair, but enough to be interesting, enough to be believable. Okay, then from here we move on to our details. So let's get our doors in first here. Go back to Photoshop and let us texture library, doors, looking for a roll-up door. Kind of like that. This one's already cropped. So copy that door. We're going to switch our UVs here. Kind of go to a layer that's below the AO but above everything else. And you can kind of see the outlines of where our actual doors are here. And I just want to fit that texture right into it. Just scaling to fit it in there. Switch off our UV. And then I'm going to put a little unsharp mask on it and level adjust it so that it's whiter. Just bring the highlights up. Not bad. Now we also want to add the windows to this door because in reality they're not solid doors. They have this line of windows across there. And actually, although this door looks like it has 5 windows, this one looks like it has 4, and all the rest have 4. I'm just going to make it easy and do 4 across each of these wider doors. And the way you do that, let's see, we need to find a good window shape. I think what I might do, you have to get really creative sometimes with these things. Just go hunting for the right kind of window. Go down to my Windows folder here. Can make something happen here. And this is getting down to a real basic level of kind of making things up as you go along. I'm just going to grab these 3 windows and copy them. Trim off a little bit on the sides here. Don't need the really dark bits. And I'm going to kind of move up the bottom there. And I'm gonna move it over so that there are 3 windows that are approximately the same width. And I think what I'll do is just duplicate that. So that's basically 4 windows, and then we want to do a little bit of, for one thing, I want to take the saturation down on them because they're way too blue right now, and I want to level adjust so I can get the window frames a little lighter so they match our window or our door a little better. And then I'm going to put them down here where they belong, scale them. That's not too bad. I might unsharp mask that too. Just kind of make it a little cleaner looking. I'm just going to merge it down to my door and repeat that door. Turn my UV back on. Yeah, and then we'll just repeat the door as needed across the front of the building. Now you could also, if I were getting really fancy here, if this were a level 1 building that was right on an aircraft movement area, I would probably do several versions of the door so that there was just something different about each of them. It tends to break things up a little better for the eye and be a little more interesting to look at. There are 3 more on the back side here, same size. I'm just going to grab those and put them in place, and then we need to do the narrow doors as well. So I'm just going to bring this one over here. I'm going to use the same door, I think, and bring it in so that it's got 3 windows, and then I'm going to scale it down on the horizontal so that it fits better. Okay. Turn off our UV here, save that. See what that looks like. Alright, well, we're getting there. Acceptable for the moment. One of the reasons why I'm being a little less picky about this building is you probably can't see well from our background image here, but the runway is actually over here. The closest you'll get to it in an aircraft is about this far away, and as you can see, you're that far away from the building you can't really make out the small detailing on the doors anyway. And I'm a big believer in detail where it's required, and I'm also equally believer in not including detail if it's not going to be seen, because it's just a waste of time and development. So center that. Alright, and then we need to add some human doors and some windows to this. Now, it doesn't have a lot of them, but it has a few. There's one there. Imagine there's one behind this shrubbery here that's the main entrance. A couple here. And if you'll look, these doors don't have any windows in them, and they're actually kind of a dusty blue color, at least in this view. So fortunately I have some doors like that. I go back up to my door collection here from textures.com. We have these doors which come in handy. The only thing wrong with them, of course, is that they have windows in them. So I'm just going to clone stamp out my window. Take a minute, go through it and do that. This looks really messy. I'm not sure I want to do it this way. Yeah, I'll grab it from another part of the door over here. Just massage it for a minute until it does pretty much what you want it to do. Still not super pretty, but again, we're not that close to the building anyway. Get rid this marking here. I think what I'll do is grab that, and then I'll take my door handle here and dupe it over and flip it. Alright, and then I'll just use this door as my door. So, copy that, close it without saving. We want to not harm our original source file. And then see about how big it needs to be here. Turn off our UV. Give it a little unsharp mask as usual when we downsize something. Maybe narrow it up just a hair. It looks like our texture maybe is not quite one-to-one here. Okay, so we need more of these. Maybe a couple on the front face here. A couple there. I'm going to put one back behind where the shrub is, and then maybe some on the back as well. So, let's see, I think, which one? That is the shrub area here. Put one there. Why it will not just, it's supposed to be duplicating and grabbing it, but it won't just draw it out horizontally. I don't know why. Photoshop has been getting weirder by the day with these last few upgrades. I use the word upgrade with a certain amount of tongue-in-cheek. It's getting to be a little bit difficult to deal with. I think I'll flip this one too. Edit, transform, flip horizontal. Get our door handles facing one another. Yeah, we got those two there. Don't need that one there though. I don't even know where that came from. Let's see where else we need one on the back here. I'll put one right in this indentation. Our back door, I think. Which is right here, I believe. Alright, and we add some windows in. Again, pretty generic windows. You can kind of see a cross pane here, and maybe one about 2/3 of the way down the window. A lot of this is just guesswork or sort of imagining what it would look like if you were standing right up close to it. I might actually go back to the windows that we were using before and see if we can just use those or some version of them, since that's even got the panes kind of set up the way they seem to be in the real thing. Just going to copy that whole thing Stick it over here. Let's see. Windows are tall. They're almost as tall as the doors are. Maybe half meter at the most of wall beneath that window. So I'm gonna kind of get them about that size. And I'm gonna size it down here. Get rid of that middle one. I don't think we have any 3-section windows here. One. These are all doubles. And there's one shorter one there that has 3. Level it up. Saturate down. Just want to get rid of any hint of dark edge around this. We can add them back in with blend modes if we need to. Trimming them down to where they're about the right size. Actually, I kind of think those are still a little bit big. And then how many are there? There are 1, 2 here, 2 on either side of the door. Well, then they're obviously too wide, because 2 aren't going to fit on either side. Let's see, turn our UV map. Oh wow, they're way too wide, way too big. Couldn't get 2 on either side of that to save your life. Not too bad. Probably fine. I'm going to put 1 back here, a couple on the back side. Put 1 over here by in that area that you can't really see very well. Just lining up the top of the window with the top of the door. Bump these over a little bit. Center them on the wall. And 1 just for good measure here. Too dark, you can't really see anything. You can kind of make out a couple of them along here. I think I'll put several along this wall here. And put 1 more just for good measure. We're going to have some vegetation here that will cover most of that up. Oh, and there's 1 here on the end, right by. I think that would be here. Let's try it and see. Yeah, that's it. Okay. Then I'm gonna select one of these and do a smaller window. kind of a one panel smaller one, and then like a 3-panel one here. So we'll move it over. Maybe narrow that up just a little more. Trying to kind of replicate that look. Okay. That about does it for the windows. Another thing that I noticed in here was I'm not quite sure what this is. It's two. Oh, look, and we got another door there in the side. Actually, 2 doors. One happens to be open, so we'll put a couple more doors there. I'm gonna, even though it's probably not what it is, I think I'm gonna put a vent up there. I think that'd be acceptable. Give it a little bit of variation. First, let me get my door. Okay. UV here. Set in just a bit more than that. Bit more like it. Now let's get our vent. Let me find a vent. I know I've got some good ones in my miscellaneous collection here. Let's see. Kind of like that. It's actually placed down a bit. Place it right about there. Take back the color a bit and a little unsharp, too much unsharp masking. In fact, I may not mask it at all. It looks pretty good like that. Needs to be taller though. Just gonna duplicate and drag it down here. I think maybe narrower as well. Yeah. And just for giggles, to kind of blend it a little better, I might dial back the opacity on it just a little. Kind of set it back into that wall of hair. See if that doesn't help. Yeah. Kind of helps blend it in. And the only other thing that I want to do before I kind of wrap up and say this is where it needs to be is it's a little stark here where the roof line meets the front of the building. In reality, you'd have a little bit of shadowing and shading there, maybe even some trim. So I think what I'm going to do, just to make it quick and easy, this is like a down and dirty trick you can do for roof line shadowing. Yes, I'm going to go all the way down to my base stucco layer here. I'll turn on my UV. And wherever I want my shadows, I'm going to trim my stucco layer right down. Can I get in close here? Just above the UV line. And let's see. Where else has roof overhang? These areas here. Use a little lasso so I can do a see, that was a really ugly lasso job. Let me try that again. Leaving just a little bit of stucco, like a pixel or two, above the UV line here. It's almost like it's snapping to an unseen target. Marquee here. One more lasso. And right here too. Show you what I'm doing here in just a second. Let me get all these selected properly. Just selecting my roof line where the metal roof would kind of overhang. I'm deleting it here. I said this was quick and dirty. Truth is, it's dirty, not always all that quick. Using the shift key to constrain to horizontal here for the lasso. Just trying to get things moving a little faster. Then what I want to do is I'm going to switch off my UV here, go down to my stucco layer. I'm going to right click, go to blending options, and add an inner shadow to it. Dial the size back to just like 6. And maybe a distance of about 2 pixels, and then pull back the opacity. Let's go with 60% now. What I'm aiming for is to give a little, here, just give a little shadow of the roof overhang around the edge of my roof, everywhere that it hangs over it. That's a little too subtle. I'm going to go up a little bit on my distance. And maybe a little bit more, 70 on the opacity, and see what happens. I think that'll do. It's subtle. It adds something, though. It kind of makes that roof look like it's sitting on top of the building and interacting with the wall below it. Anyway, that's just kind of a basic overview of the whole process from start to finish, with from the UV unwrap all the way through to some sort of medium detail texturing, all done by hand.